What's up, guys? Four Wheeler Doctor back again, doing another lift kit. Second one in 2 days. This is on a 1997 300 Fourtrax, 4-wheel drive, and this is a Highlifter lift kit. 2-inch lift, just a bolt-on lift. This is more custom than the ones I'm normally putting on. The one I did last night was a Super ATV, a little bit different design than this one. But both of them pretty simple to put on. This one may be just a hair bit complicated, a little bit more complicated than the other one, but still not tough. I already had the 4-wheeler jacked up and actually on some jack stands because I'm doing a whole bunch of other stuff to it, like rebuilding the motor and putting the gear reduction in and all that stuff. So might leave a link to that right up here if you want to check it out. Anyway, we're going to throw a lift on this thing. I'm just going to do one side on the front here because it's pretty much mirrored on the other side. It should be pretty simple to get on. We have, with pretty much common hand tools. I'm going to use a hair, but you don't have to. You can do this with ratchets and wrenches if that's all you have. So our first step on this thing is to take the 14mm lower bolt and nut off of the shock. Well, first thing is to take the tire off, which I'd already done that in this case. So now we're going to remove this bolt here, and this bolt will actually not be reused. The kit comes with new bolts to put in here. Alright, pull that off like that. Let it hang down a little bit. Alright guys, we're going to stick this bracket on here. The bracket you want to use is this one with the notch in it, and the angle goes up the side here. That'll be facing toward the wheel, and it slides right over your little brake bracket there. Slide your bolt through there. This is a little bit tight. Goes right in there like that. Stick you a new nut on there, just like that. And now what I'm going to have to do is pry this shock up over that bracket to get it to slide in there. And I got to find the screwdriver. Alright, so take the screwdriver and pry this thing up over the bracket. Kind of compresses down on your shock a little bit. Okay, so next thing you need is another bolt supplied with the kit, this little spacer and a nut. The bolt goes in first, the spacer goes in. I don't think it matters which side you stick the spacer on, but it needs to go between the bracket and the shock, and you're going to have to pry up on your shock just a little bit to get your bolt hole to line up, and continue to pry up on this thing just a little bit and press on your bolt, and it'll go in there, and that's what your finished product's going to look like. So you got a spacer in here, 2 lock nuts on the back, pretty much like that. So we're going to tighten that down. I believe this thing is 17mm on the front and the back side. So 2 17mm wrenches or sockets or whichever way you want to tighten this thing down, and that will be what you need to snug this up. So tighten it down good and tight. Don't want these things to come off. These lock nuts, they're usually pretty good about holding on there. So tighten that down, tighten the bottom one down, and that's pretty much it. Cinch it down a little bit here. So that's it. So now flip to the other side, do the exact same thing. I'm not going to, like I said before, I'm not going to show you the other side because it's pretty much identical to this, other than you use the other bracket. And then we'll jump to the back. I'll cut the camera back on when I get to the back. Alright guys, around here on the back side now. Went ahead and pulled the tires off just to make it a little easier to see. This 4-wheeler has a lot going on back here on the back end. For instance, the hole in the differential here, got to fix that, as well as the brake that's been cut off of it because it's going to put an axle paddle on. But that's beside the point. Installing the lift kit still going to be the same, although this one looks a whole lot rougher, I'm hoping, than yours does. Just remove this bottom 14mm bolt off the shock, and that is where your spacer is going to go. So let me pull this thing off here real quick. Hopefully I can get my impact or my air ratchet in here, and it's not going to work. So let me grab a ratchet wrench, pull this bolt off of here, and I will say that I did go ahead and pull the tires off, but also jack this thing up and put it on some jack stands. You want to lower it down on the jack stands. You don't want this the rear jack to be supporting it completely, because when you take the shock off, the rear end will go flying up if you don't have it supported on a jack stand, because that's all that holds the weight of the four-wheeler up. So make sure you support it on some jack stands, and it's good to leave the jack up under it to keep it from falling out, the rear end falling down once you get this bolt taken out. So I just got it under there with some light pressure on it. I was going to cut the camera off while I pull this bolt out, but I have talked the whole time I've done it. So now we got the bolt out. It actually slides right out, just like that. Lowered his rear end down now, and the shock should come out of the bracket there, just like that. Grab our new bracket here, and the way this thing goes, it's got a little notch on one side, and the other side has two notches on it. The larger notch on the side with two notches goes toward the bottom, down like that. And it may actually be easier if I flip the shock forward to get this installed. Push the shock forward some, slide that bracket down on there. You actually can lower it down a little bit more to give you a little more room to work with. You don't have to have it jammed right up on there. So goes like that. Take your new bolt, and this spacer here actually goes where the old shock used to go, in between these two ears, kind of like where I just flipped it, but in a little bit different direction. So you slide this in here between the old bracket, and it's going to really take some alignment to get all this stuff together. So you got to get the bracket lined up, your bolt through there, which I've got the bracket about lined up here, and I don't know why the bolt's not going through. It's got to be very, very close. So you get the bracket lined up, your bolt going through like that, then get the spacer in here, slide it down in there, and just hope it doesn't fall down all the way forward so that you lose complete grip of it. And it kind of did. I think we're going to improvise here, and I'm going to get a magnet to hold that spacer up while I stick the bolt through it. So get the magnet on the spacer, lift it up like that, slide the bolt through the bracket, slide it through the spacer, through the bracket, through the spacer, and back out the bracket on the other side. Alright, so that's on there loosely. And the other one, top, you've got a bolt that goes through one of these little spacers like we had on, exactly like we had on the front. I'm going to have to jack this up just a little bit to get close to our bolt hole. So slide this through, slide our little spacer through. I mean, this may as well be a jigsaw puzzle, all the little pieces you got to stick in here. Hit the jack a couple times to get it lined up. There it goes, just sliding through the shock. Alright, and the last item to go on here is going to be this bracket. This little bracket here goes on that top bolt and bolts into this 14mm bolt here. It's actually a factory bolt that goes into the brake. It threads into the back of the brake. Actually, it's not threaded, it's a stud, but there's a nut that goes onto the brake. So get you a wrench, pull that off there real quick. This thing is very close to that bracket for the hitch. Okay, so now slide. Here again, another thing that has to be lined up. I'm actually thinking I'm going to relieve a little bit of pressure on this thing. It might make it easier to go together. So get your bolt going through there, lined up on one side of the bracket. Then your brackets through your other piece of, there we go. Alright, got it down a little bit. Brackets halfway lined up. Push that shock forward. Stick a nut on this side. And then our factory nut back on here. Alright guys, and then there's your final product. So you've got the bolt through here with the spacer in the bottom, the bolt through here, this is the big spacer, the small spacer between the shock and the bracket. Then you go over here with this little bracket that ties onto this factory bolt or stud and put the lock nut on the back side. So just tighten up these 17mm bolts and that 14mm, and that's it for a lift kit install on a 300 Fourtrax. If I didn't have to talk and mess with this camera and find my tools, this is probably about a 30-minute job. So somebody with zero experience could probably do it in an hour with just basic hand tools. So this is definitely something you could tackle if you want to put one of these on your bike. I had one on a 450 Foreman that I ran for years and years and years, and never really saw any odd or ill effects to it as far as the stuff wearing out like it shouldn't have or like it wouldn't have otherwise. So I can't really say anything bad about these lifts. But check out my other videos, hit the like button, subscribe. Y'all have a good night.